I observed that he revered his parents and studied well the lessons they taught him. Of his mother, my only recently departed grandmother, he wrote, "She taught us not to take ourselves too seriously, but to pay careful attention to the views of others. And she taught us to treat everyone with whom we came into contact equally, always bearing in mind that in life, we are all up and down the line from each other in some respect." This idea that we are all up and down the line from each other was deep in him. He saw the dignity and humanity in people. He was an optimist. It will be okay for my father was not a matter of denialism, of being a Pollyanna or a Panglossian, but I think a way of saying, we will make it work. He believed, as my Aunt Anthea put it to me recently, in putting one foot in front of the other. Calm and optimism could not solve every problem, but with my father there, we would not fall apart when faced with troubles. With their permission, I would like to cite here a tribute written by my aunts in which they say, "To emphasize that Dennis was our big brother might be to state the obvious, but he gave the term a special resonance. We had a tight bond, not just because we were all three close in age, not just because he was the firstborn and the only son, but also because he was large in heart, generous and constant in his caring and support and affection. Our parents taught us to always be loyal and loving to each other. That lesson was not hard to learn. It shielded us and sustained us far beyond the years of our childhood. We watched our brother move with purpose through his adult years. We watched him with love and pride, pride in his many accomplishments, his commitment and contribution to country, and his exemplary reputation. But we were even more proud of the man he was as devoted and beloved husband, father, grandfather, uncle, teacher, and friend. People always mattered more to Dennis than positions or titles. He has been a stalwart to our family, always providing a voice of calm assurance in difficult times. What has struck me in the last several weeks is how, listening to and reading the many tributes to him, he has been a stalwart to many others too, outside our family. He touched many people. A former colleague of his said that everyone who met him somehow felt he was a close friend. I believe this is because of the quality of the attention he gave to people. He seemed to be really interested in you as a person, a friend wrote to me recently. I think this is in part what people mean when they say he was humble. In my adulthood, I have been blessed to count him not only as a guide, a mentor, a father, but also as a friend. He had the gift of friendship, of extending a hand to you in hopeful expectation that you would extend it back. I'm thankful to have received emails from him for the last 20-some years, with his recent writing on various subjects attached, for your diversion in an idle moment, as he would often put it. I will continue to wonder what he would think about the new technology of the day, the latest political news, and so on. I'm thankful that he was blessed with grandchildren whom he loved and adored, and especially that he had a relationship with my daughter, Emma. He burst with love for and pride in his children and grandchildren. He looked to the future with optimism and hope. My father had an excellent memory for lines of poetry and would occasionally ask for my help in finding the text of a poem recalled from long ago, which he hoped to cite in something he was writing. One such poem was by a Bajan poet, H.A. Vaughan, titled "To the Unborn Leader." It is addressed to future generations who take up the mantle. The lines he remembered, the lines with which the poem ends, were, "Above all this, we send you, above all else, we send you this, the flaming faith of these first years." He was moved by the line and the idea that we work hard, that we do our best, knowing it is never enough, and that we pass the torch to and cheer on the ones who come after. I'm thankful that he was celebrated in his lifetime. Professionally, yes, but also by every person he touched. I believe he knew he was loved. Daddy, thank you. I miss you dearly, but I feel enormous gratitude. Rest in peace. We cherish your memory.
If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Excerpts from Rudyard Kipling, If. And what a man. Cecil Dennis Harrington Morrison, Order of Jamaica, Commander of the Order of Distinction and King's Council. He understood and had time for everyone. He has left such a large and enduring legacy, one which we will speak of for many years, not minutes. He was, as Tina Turner put it, simply the best, better than all the rest. But with that cloak of humility which he wore so gently and well, he would never have described himself thus. He was just Dennis, CDM, or Morrison, affectionately so called by all of us, and in our view, beloved by everyone. He was indeed one of the finest persons that indeed we, have ever known. Dennis's educational journey saw him attending Jamaica College and Wilmer's Boys' School, where his love of sports, language, literature, and debates began. The latter earned him the sobriquet linguist, signaling his lyrical way of speaking and writing, which was only enhanced over the years. I met Dennis when we both entered the University of the West Indies in 1968 to pursue our undergraduate studies. We were both 17 years old, and I have had the good fortune of being the beneficiary of a wonderful, unwavering friendship since then. From those early years, we knew that he was special. He exhibited great intellect, but had the swagger of youth. He enjoyed a good party, a good bear, the company of bright, intelligent women who could dance, and was polished, charming, gentlemanly, mischievous, and lovable all at the same time. He played football and cricket, but excelled as an actor. He was a lead in Old Storytime, a play written by the talented Trevor Rohn, and Morrison surely did it justice. He also exhibited early those leadership skills which would in later years stand him in good stead. When elected as Hall Chairman of Taylor Hall, he was outstanding. He moved seamlessly as a direct entrant into the second-year law faculty at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, Barbados, where he obtained a law degree with first-class honors, and then his 14 A's and 1 A- at the Norman Manley Law School, Mona, captured the Certificate of Merit there. Principal Aina will share with you his intellectual and other exploits while at the Norman Manley Law School, pursuing one of his other great passions, being an educator, as well as the amazing contribution he's made to Jamaica and the region through that dedicated commitment. But before moving on, I must mention that in 1975, he obtained the coveted Rhodes Scholarship, and it gave him such pride when years later, his son Simon attained that same award, marking only the third time in the scholarship's history that 2 successive generations in one family had shared that distinction. That has only been achieved in the Caribbean, by the way. His was a lifelong commitment to the development of the profession through a steering career in the law as an advocate and a jurist. He interned at the Kingston Legal Aid Clinic, then on Spanish Town Road, where he and fellow students Swithin Wilmot, Roy Fairclough, Ronald Paris and others volunteered thereafter classes at the Norman Manley Law School at the instigation of Ronnie Thwaites, who chaired the clinic at that time. Coming out of that work, they were invited by the then principal of the Norman Manley Law School, Justice Aubrey Fraser, to submit a proposal for the establishment of a legal aid clinic to be associated with the school, which they did, and which, to their immense satisfaction, brought about the installation of the legal aid clinic at the Norman Manley Law School. Inspired by the social change of the 70s, C. Dennis, along with Roy Fairclough and Swithin Wilmot, joined Dennis Daly, King's Counsel, Ronnie Thwaites, Richard Small and others to form the Freedom Chambers, where Dennis began his first foray in the practice of law. He was immediately immersed in those controversial issues of the day: the protection of human rights, the death penalty, the resistance to the gun court, the suppression of crime legislation, and the fight for trade union representation. There was no doubt that Dennis Daly was an inspiration to him as they fought for the defenseless and those who had no voice. Ronnie noted that Morrison was never one for histrionics in court. Wry humor and sly penetrating interrogation were his craft. His clarity of mind and calm expression had few equals. Ronnie also commented that his handwriting was delicate and reflected the elegance of his mind and the smoothness of his demeanor. This pursuit of human rights protection was made alongside his involvement as an associate tutor at the Norman Manley Law School. Then from 78 to 82, he was a full-time tutor there. In 1982, he joined the prestigious law firm of Duncox as an associate. Within a short time thereafter, he became a partner and remained their lead advocate and outstanding legal practitioner until he joined the bench in 2008. Throughout those years, C. Dennis displayed his prowess in the courts. He undertook the difficult cases in both the civil and criminal jurisdictions. He dealt with complex commercial banking cases and intensely complicated family matters. He continued his commitment to legal aid and appeared often for those charged with serious criminal offenses who would otherwise be unrepresented. His successes in the lower courts, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and before the law lords in the Privy Council were observed with awe and appreciation. Indeed, one of his early forays in the Privy Council, Graham versus Pitkin, a case concerning real property, was reported in the highly regarded All England Law Reports. It came as no surprise, therefore, when he was appointed Queen's Counsel, as it was then, in 1994, one of the youngest persons to take silk in a generation. He was smooth, he was crafty, and so charming that before you knew it, as an opponent, you had lost your case. I will only mention two cases specifically, both of which were groundbreaking. In both matters, despite their uniqueness, with no precedents to follow, and therefore very challenging for an advocate, C. Dennis appeared pro bono, free of charge. In the first one in 2004, he appeared for the Jamaica Bar Association in the protection of the sacrosanct principle of legal professional privilege, challenging a prosecution decision resulting in police officers marching into lawyers' offices with warrants to take anything and everything with no exception, having no respect for the confidentiality of communications between lawyers and their clients, seeking advice or in contemplation of litigation. We won, thanks to the brilliant articulation of our counsel. The second, in 2006, sought the protection of the ecological environment of Pear Tree Bottom in the parish of St. Anne. It was Jamaica's first public interest environmental case, where the Jamaica Environment Trust, amongst others, requested judicial review of decisions made by the National Resources Conservation Authority, the NRCA, and the National Environment Planning Agency, NEPA, granting an environmental permit for the construction of a very large hotel without the required and necessary consultation with members of the public. Appearing before the Honorable Mr. Justice Sykes, as he then was, Morrison succeeded in persuading the court to quash the decision to grant the permit and to direct the authority to reconsider its decision, adopting the proper procedure. He was involved in groundbreaking cases not only in Jamaica, but also in the Caribbean. He was a member of the tribunal appointed by the President of Trinidad and Tobago to consider the question of the removal of the Chief Justice from office for professional misconduct. He also agreed to be appointed both here and abroad as a member of commissions of inquiry either into the private practice privileges for members of the Government Medical Service in Jamaica or concerning the loss of lives resulting in marine investigations in the Bahamas. I must also mention in passing that C. Dennis became a Commonwealth Foundation Fellow in 1991, a Leo Goodwin Memorial Fellow of the Nova Southeastern University, Florida in 2004, a Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators in 2013, and he was elected Honorary Bencher of Lincoln's Inn in 2019. As you can see, he was not an ordinary somebody. Right up until 2023, he was still receiving awards. On January 28, 2023, the Organization of Commonwealth Caribbean Associations, OCMA, bestowed on him the Distinguished Service Award for his sterling contribution to the legal profession. And in September 2023, the Caribbean Court of Justice Academy of Law conferred on him an Eminent Caribbean Jurist Award for his outstanding contribution to the legal profession. So our beloved Dennis was recognized and acknowledged as a scholar with an impressive intellect over these many decades. And throughout all this, he remained as we all knew him, unassuming yet amazing. It was his calm, quiet personality, coupled with immense wisdom, that while counsel made him sought after to sit on several boards of management. And these ranged from commercial institutions such as the Bank of Jamaica, other banks and insurance companies, to several charities, including the Council of Voluntary Social Services, CVSS, which he chaired for 3 years, during which time he steered the organization through its 50th anniversary celebrations and significant administrative changes. He, however, had a particular attachment to the mustard seed communities with which he was associated for nearly 20 years and to which he gave unstintingly of his time and resources. It would be remiss of me if I did not speak of Dennis as a member of the bar. You see, he was not just an advocate. He was a legal professional committed to the development of the profession of which he was a part. He became a member of the Jamaican Bar Association in 1978, shortly after he was admitted to practice in 1975, and he served that association as its vice president, then president, and the profession with such distinction that the bar honored him, raising him to its highest place of honor in December 2021, shortly after he retired from the bench. Dennis participated in several committees of the association and of the General Legal Council, the governing body of the bar, of which he was a member, focusing on continuing legal education. It was not for him to merely sit on committees, however. He made himself available in spite of his busy law practice to be as prolific with his published papers and articles as he was later to be with his judgments on the bench. He delivered and published 27 papers and articles and gave 20 unpublished presentations. His legal writings were sound, clear, and concise. They are referred to consistently for research in the areas that he had addressed, and he was constantly in demand to repeat presentations as they made difficult expositions on the law clear and understandable. Then, in answering even the tritest of questions, nothing was ever too silly or pedestrian for him. He always made persons feel that he was helping them specifically. His commitment to legal aid and its advancement in the country was manifested by his serving as chairman of the Kingston Legal Aid Clinic for over a decade and of the Legal Aid Council for half a decade. He worked tirelessly on improving that system so that litigants were able to access legal assistance far more readily under his stewardship. Then in 2008, he was elevated to the bench. The Honorable Seymour Ratcliffe Panton, Order of Jamaica, former President of the Court of Appeal, induced him out of Duncox to begin another journey. He had already served on the non-resident Court of Appeal in Belize for several years, but it was quite a coup to get Dennis to leave his thriving law practice to join the public service, but he did. Then, with his calm, dedicated, and committed style, exhibiting true collegiality, he shared his knowledge and wisdom with ease, and as could have been foretold, became the most prolific writer in the court, producing excellent judgments on all areas of the law, and in time became the president of the court. He then pursued his own initiatives. He introduced the annual report of the court, bringing increased transparency of the court to the public, and issued several practice directions to improve proficiency. He worked tirelessly with all stakeholders of the court, and he steered us through the very difficult first year of the COVID-19 pandemic. Former Chief Justice McCallum, recognizing his willingness to work hard and his eagerness to make a difference, put him in charge of our criminal case management conferences, the processes for managing criminal cases, as well as developing sentencing guidelines and rules for criminal justice system. Needless to say, he did a great job. All in all, he was an excellent president who left an incredible body of work, advancing the Jamaican and Caribbean jurisprudential landscape, and together with his administrative innovations, has left an extraordinary legacy. Additionally, everyone in the court loved him. Judges, registrars, especially Registrar Stacyan, with whom he had a special relationship, and all members of staff, the close protection officers and orderlies alike. He was a favorite boss. Just as he was boss of the year after year at Duncox, he was that and more as president. We were all so sorry when he had to retire, having reached the constitutional bar at 70 on 4 December 2020. Of course, retirement did not mean the same to him as it does to others. In a few months in 2021, he was appointed president of the Court of Appeal in the Turks and Caicos Islands, a position he held until he resigned last year. While there, working with Chief Justice Ajaman, at her invitation, he chaired committees to settle sentencing guidelines and disciplinary regulations for judicial officers. He also helped to pioneer judicial education, having been appointed vice chairman of the Judicial Education Institute of the Turks and Caicos Islands. He was also then participating in judicial training in Guyana and completed a second term of the Regional Judicial and Legal Services Commission of the CCJ, which guides the administrative and other operations of the court. All this while he continued to serve on the Court of Appeal bench in the Cayman Islands. Previously, he had also done a short stint in the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. He was truly a Caribbean jurist, so loved and respected. But we have the right to claim him as especially ours, first and foremost. Finally, I must speak about C. Dennis, the man, the person, and my friend. As a man, he was gentle, kind, compassionate, and caring to all of us. And when I say all of us, I really mean that. Dennis managed to acquire several godchildren along the way, children of his friends, as well as those of the ladies who sell the Gleaner at King's House and the corner of Birdsucker Lane, whose names he knew. 3 sons of a staff member of the GLC and 2 daughters of a staff member at Duncox. Sometimes at the end of the day at the court, there would be members of staff waiting outside his door to have audience with him. Then we often saw the close protection officers chasing him up and down King Street as he would casually walk out of the building on his own, on his way to Burger King, Kingston Bookshop, or anywhere, or just standing on the corner waiting for a taxi to take him to collect his car from the dealers. Colleagues would see him in the line at the Jamaica Public Service or the National Water Commission and ask, "Judge, what are you doing here?" He would look at them with that mischievous smile on his face and say, "Paying my bills?" This was a man who could walk among kings but never lose the common touch. He was the only person I knew who used to visit a friend at a home for the elderly regularly, and at Christmas time, the management would ask him to bring 20 boxes of KFC and 20 drinks and plenty Christmas cake for all the residents. Of course, Dennis complied, and he did so with great joy and pleasure. His generosity knew no bounds. Everyone benefited from his largesse, but he, even more than they did, as his heart was full. Then when he and Janet moved to Irishtown, on some days during the week, a buxom market vendor would come to their Dreamtime gate, knocking and calling out, wonderful gentleman, I'm here." And Dennis would go out, empty her basket, pay for everything, and when Janet would carefully comment, "But honey, we don't need any more bananas or oranges. We have so many already. Where are we going to put all this produce?" His response was, "It's okay, darling. We will make space." And if you were his friend, His care of you and his loyalty to you were immeasurable. When my mother passed away and I called him, his only question was, "Where are you?" He was there within 5 minutes to assist my brother with placing her carefully with the undertakers. When my sister passed, he and Janet were on their way out of town, and he turned back to give me support at the hospital bedside. Don't. And when I was in the hospital for 5 weeks, he, despite his busy schedule as president, visited me every day. It was that calm, incredible support that got me through that very difficult time. He has really been there at every crossroad in my life and throughout our friendship, giving wisdom regularly on important decisions which I needed to make. I better not have any more of those unless he can send instructions down with the angels and the reception is good. I cannot forget how he welcomed me to the Court of Appeal, as he had started there a 1.5 years before me. Serving the public at that high level alongside him made the journey an enlightening and enjoyable one, in spite of the brutal pace and at times difficult conditions under which we had to work. I have always thanked him for that. There is a Japanese haiku that says, "Everyone can hear your song, but only those who love you hear your sigh." See, Dennis always heard all of our sighs, and he responded, never judgmentally or with a wry word, only with love and kindness. We love him and shall mourn him for a very long time. And we thank you, Father, for this extraordinary, brilliant, kind, and compassionate son, a child of the universe. I extend my sincere condolences to his beloved wife, Janet, his dear sons, Simon and Daniel, beloved sisters and nephew, Anthea, Patron, and Tariq, dear daughters and sons-in-law, Giselle, Chrissy, Melissa, Stephen, and Sean, beloved grandchildren, Lennon, Parker, Emma, Nina, and Boo, and all other members of his family. You are all heartbroken now and stricken with grief. We all are. But please think on this, although it will take time. The day will come when there will only be smiles instead of tears when we think of our beloved C. Dennis. I would like to leave you with 2 stanzas of a poem written by Norman Davis, Senior Tutor 2 at the Norman Manley Law School, that he read last Tuesday at the candlelight ceremony at the Norman Manley Law School celebrating Dennis's life. Which wordsmith can say, can convey your legacy? In career, friends, and family, which wordsmith can recreate the life we now celebrate, the respect you generate? Dennis, you are a Caribbean treasure, beyond measure. You walked in our midst, easy, tall, and distinguished. You displayed a humanity we still admire. May your life long inspire. Rest well, my friend, until we meet again. May light perpetual shine on you.
All protocol observed. This is my letter to my husband, scripted on my heart, that I share with you today. My darling Dennis, my husband, friend and confidant. I speak directly to you, my beloved soulmate, because I know for sure with all my heart that you are here in spirit with us today, as ever, calm and peaceful. Thank you for loving me, and I thank God for having been loved by you. Please forgive me for shaking. I'm proud to have called you my husband. Dennis, thank you for your tireless and loving devotion to your sons, Simon and Daniel, to my daughters, Giselle, Chrissy, who you loved as your own, your sisters, Anthea, Petey, who adored you, and to them always their D-boy. Thank you for loving our grandchildren, Parker, Lennon, Nina, Emma, and Bo. Thank you for loving Stephen and Simon and Melissa, your in-laws. You made your presence felt in the life of each of us, turning up in every moment. Selflessly, you gave emotional shelter and assurance that all will be well. A listening ear, a shoulder, a hand to hold, a shared wisdom, an unclouded and clear insight into a challenging situation. You were being simply you. You were a candle in the dark. Thank you for your unsolicited countless acts of kindness to colleagues, students, those you worked for and worked with, those with whom you appeared with, and those who appeared in front of you in your singularly unassuming, humble way. You always gave from your beautiful heart, expecting nothing in return. I say thank you, Dennis, because you're always mindful of your manners, lovingly taught to you by your parents, Inez and CJ, of whom Simon spoke so lovingly. You never took for granted even the smallest act of kindness, no matter from whom, and you did so with genuine respect and humility. You pass this on to your children. And so I recall that in 2004, when Simon was on his way to King's House for the Rhodes Scholarship interview, your simple advice to him was, "Son, Simon, remember, please and thank you." Simon heeded that advice well and was, for that and many other good reasons, selected the Rhodes Scholar for that year. Dennis, you would have heard many speak of your facility with the English language. You mastered it so well, and your prowess at the podium was so evident that as early as your sixth form years at Woolmer School for boys, you were known as a linguist. However, notwithstanding your gift of speech and prose, when in 2005 you proposed marriage to me, you did so on a post-it. Will you marry me? How about May 7th? Of course you know my answer. We were married by Reverend Dr. Ralph Hoyt, who is here today with us on May 14th, 2005. Because when you and a good reverend checked May 7th and discovered that the West Indies team was playing Australia at Sabina Park on that day. Our wedding date was put off to the following weekend, May the 14th. Thank you for 19 wonderful years of marriage. At all times, you were a gentleman, opening doors, pulling out chairs, reserving the head of the table for me. The heckling that you got from your male friends was, "Look, you're a linguist. You make us look bad, you know, man." Music and great conversation, the good and the bad jokes, and the love we shared for art in all its forms, and oh, the rousing chat and laughter with friends. I miss your signature one move on the dance floor, the same move to every song. Believe me, even now in the depths of my grief, I cannot say that you're a good dancer. Though Don Cox's legend has it that you did a good routine to Shaggy's Bombastic. My love, you will be missed for your easy manner, your accessibility to all. Our Don Cox family fondly recounts how people would line up outside your office door, waiting their turn to discuss matters that range from complex legal issues to domestic matters of the heart. It is well known, the reputation that you also quickly earned at the Court of Appeal of Jamaica, of the Court of Appeal in Belize, of the Court of Appeal in Cayman, and in the Turks and Caicos, for your generosity, humility, and respect for all. You would have me, and I do say, thank you to everyone for the tremendous outpouring of tributes, prayerful support, flowers, cards, calls, visits, and messages. In all, they all show how your leaving has broken their hearts and left a void, no less mine. Yes, you are missed and honored by all, both present and online. I borrowed this from Maya Angelou's poem, Whose Words Mirror My Loss. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms slowly and always irregularly. Spaces filled with a kind of soothing electric vibration, our senses restored, never to be the same, whispered to us, they existed. They existed. We can be, and be better, for they existed. Darling, rest in peace. You served the profession, your family, and your country well. Dennis, my heart is forever yours until we meet again. Thank you all.
Good morning. Very difficult to come after that. What a brave, brave soul. We're so proud of you, Jan. When one of the mock trial courts at the Norman Manley Law School was named in honor of Justice Dennis Morrison in 2019, it was a public symbol of what he has meant to us. But it does not tell the whole story, because the name Dennis Morrison is woven into the very fabric of the law school. So much so that we had many plans for Dennis as the law school celebrated its 50th anniversary this year. This tribute was not a part of those plans. Dennis experienced all aspects of Caribbean legal education: a student, full-time tutor, associate tutor, and then chairman of the Council of Legal Education. You have heard that he entered the first class of the law school, a talented student with a first-class degree. And by all accounts, Dennis' student days were happy ones. He says, in writing reflections for his class on the occasion of the law school's 40th anniversary, it was a fun time, a gilded time in which permanent connections were fostered and secured, uniting families and symbolizing the sense of regional destiny in which the law school's project was conceived. On his passing, his classmates said this of him: Dennis, linguist Morrison, was undoubtedly the most distinguished member of the first batch of graduates. He excelled academically and in extracurricular activities such as drama, sports, debating, public speaking, campus politics, and partying. His easygoing, affable, humble, and humane personality endeared him not just to his classmates, but to the wider student body and staff from the entire Caribbean region. While a student, there were signs of the eloquence and brilliance for which Dennis is renowned. The Honorable Mr. Justice Ralston Nelson, now retired judge of the Caribbean Court of Justice, who in 1973 taught Dennis, described how at a public forum at the school, Dennis delivered the closing speech, which, by the acclaim of the audience, eclipsed what was intended as a piece de resistance of the evening. The director and the faculty of the law school predicted 50 years ago that Dennis was destined to be a leader in the profession. He was described thus by Director Aubrey Fraser. His temperament and manner make him an attractive person. His lively sense of humor and human understanding make him a congenial person. But he also has that quality that makes people listen to what he has to say, a quality of confidence and authority in knowledge and speech. His choice of profession is compatible with his distinct desire for direct contact with humanity. He was 23 years old. Those words were written then, and they could have been used to describe him throughout his life. As Justice Phillips mentioned, he graduated from the law school with the highest academic accolade, the Certificate of Merit, and also in that year was nominated as a Rhodes Scholar. And in congratulating him on the nomination, Director Mr. Aubrey Fraser said, "Some people have never recovered from the experience of attending Oxford. Others behave as though they never enjoyed it. I feel confident that you will retain your sense of proportion, and good humor. We can all attest that Dennis's sense of balance, humility, and humor only strengthened as he matured. Dennis's career as a teacher at the law school began in 1977, when he became an associate tutor, teaching hire purchase and sale of goods. In 1978, he joined the full-time staff as a course director for the Law of Evidence. In an interview for the then law school student publication, The Young Attorney magazine, Dennis said that he was comfortable with most areas of the law, but the law of evidence was his love. He had a passion and a gift for teaching, and throughout his over 44 years of being thus engaged, whether full-time, associate, or course director, students have offered unqualified praise for his classes. In speaking of Dennis, just a sample of the reflections given by various classes at our 40th anniversary celebrations tell the story. We were all dazzled by the brilliance and grace exhibited by Mr. C. Dennis Morrison, class of 1983. Who can forget the suave Dennis Morrison who made the law of evidence fun, class of 1989? We knew exactly how we should present ourselves as future attorneys in demeanor, diction, and dress, class of 1995. The cool ruler, class of 2012. More recently, in responding to a letter congratulating him on his perfect scores on the students' evaluations and informing him of their comments, he responded to me, "It is certainly comforting at my age to be reassured by the younger generation that one is still the boss, and one's efforts have continued to sell off." As many know, he did not keep an attendance register, but his students insisted that it was not necessary, as his class was always packed to capacity. Upon news of his passing, a former student, Lisa Showman, now a judge, wrote, "A rare, gifted, natural teacher. He knew how to use equal parts of humor, case notes, anecdotes, real-life scenarios, and the Socratic method gently to get the best out of his students. His was one class you did not want to miss because it was so rich with learning, not education, learning." Dennis was beloved by the staff at the 3 law schools. They talk of his kindness, his genuine interest in their well-being, his pleasant demeanor, his willingness to listen and to provide comfort or advice, and the respect he showed for all. He was appointed as the chairman of the Council of Legal Education in 1998, and he served in that capacity until 2006. In describing his contributions to the council, Mr. Emil Ferdinand Casey, himself a former chairman, noted that even before Dennis became the chair, when he sat as the bar representative for Jamaica, his characteristic calm, gentle interventions immeasurably contributed to the CLE meetings. And Emil continued, such egalitarian but respectful engagement was epitomized by Dennis and benefited our Caribbean civilization. He believes that a fitting tribute to Dennis's memory is for us all to seek to continue his ever-smooth diplomatic style. I know that the principals of the other law schools also attest to the support Dennis provided for them. He was always a phone call away, and lately a WhatsApp message away. When I joined the firm of Duncox with Dennis as the head of litigation, the best boss ever, and on Friday evenings we would have our meetings on the 5th floor in the conference room to assign who was going where. All those people who ran away from litigation would suddenly want to be in litigation because they couldn't understand why there was so much laughing. And it was Dennis, after he had assigned files, giving us joke upon joke upon joke. When I left the firm in 1997 to join the law school, he said my leaving was mitigated for him by the fact that I was going to an institution equally dear to his heart. I thank Dennis for the support he's given me I thank Dennis and Jan for hosting a dinner for me when I was appointed as principal and for their genuine joy and always having my back. Throughout his life, Dennis remained a true scholar, and the law school benefited from his scholarship. He was a decades-long member of the editorial board of the West Indian Law Journal and one of its most prolific contributors. I have one last article to publish. A lecture Dennis gave in 2019 at the Barnett Lecture Series. It was entitled Law and Technology. And those in attendance will recall the laughter when Dennis confessed that as part of his research, he said, "Siri, do you love me?" And Siri responded by saying, "Well, Dennis, we've only just met." I am pretty sure that if we were to ask Siri if he loves Dennis now, she loves Dennis, she would say yes. Dennis's generosity was legendary. He would invariably donate his stipend from teaching to a needy student. He also continued, although he was no longer the course director for the Law of Evidence, to give that prize. The Council of Legal Education and its schools, including the Norman Manley Law School, Dennis's alma mater, take pride in all of his achievements. He represented the very best of all that the founders of the system of Caribbean legal education promised. We are thankful for knowing you, Dennis, and for your humanity, your time, your talent, and your tithe. I wish to conclude because it resonated with me when she said, "But the things I remember him best for are not his myriad accomplishments. I remember and celebrate his consummate humanity, the twinkle in his eye, his trademark smile, his genuine interest in, his caring and concern about you, about the person he was speaking with." To Jan and the family, our deepest condolences. We will always be there for you.